Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey is one of the worst horror movies I've ever seen.
It's the biggest piece of dog shit.
But despite how terrible of a movie it is, it somehow made a decent amount of money at the box office. And shortly after that, they made a sequel, and it was way more well received than the first one. That one also made bank, and so unsurprisingly, we're getting another one. And over the last few weeks, we've been getting our first sneak previews of what's to come in the upcoming third entry. And as someone who's kind of become known for a little bit for talking about copyright-free horror movies, I thought it'd be fun to go over our first looks at Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey 3. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video, and if you do all of that, then you are officially groovy. So, it's been a pretty busy time lately for the Twisted Childhood universe, guys. The new Pinocchio horror movie just had its premiere at a film festival, and I know I might be a little too early to judge, but so far its minimal reviews do make it seem promising. And very soon, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey 3 is gonna start shooting, which makes it the 6th movie in this franchise. Yes, there are now 6 of these movies, and not to mention that there's even more confirmed for the future, including a massive crossover movie called Pooniverse Monsters Assemble. Remember when I talked about that? Anyways, for the past couple of weeks, we've gotten some first looks at the new Winnie the Pooh horror movie, which includes completely new looks for the characters. At this point, each installment is basically starting to feel like a video game update with all these new designs. But with that being said, this is what Winnie the Pooh is gonna look like in the next movie. And overall, I do think he looks really good. This is definitely the most menacing he's looked. And the little touches like the hairs on his face and the battle scar across his eye look really solid. We've certainly come a long way from that awful looking Halloween mask they bought off of some random website. Also, here's a first look at the actor playing Winnie the Pooh in his full costume. I hope this guy's gonna have fun on set being underneath all those heavy prosthetics. But if you thought Winnie the Pooh got a massive upgrade, wait until you see Tigger's new design. For reference, this is what he looked like in the previous installment, and here's what he's gonna look like in this new one. And boy, has this dude gotten an insane makeover. It genuinely feels like a completely different character with how different he looks. But even with that said, this is also a really standout looking design for Tigger. I would even go as far as to say that this is about as good as you can possibly get if you were to design a tiger-human hybrid for your movie. So after seeing these new designs for the characters, I instantly had to look up who was doing the makeup for this movie. So the guy doing makeup for Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey 3 is named Vlad Taupesh? It's some Eastern European name, I don't know. I wasn't familiar with this guy at first, so I figured I'd check out his work on IMDb. And guys, his credits? I'm not exactly familiar with them either. Like, what the hell are these? I don't know, but anyways, I do think his makeup effects for this movie do look really good. However, when Vlad's work was officially revealed online, it actually got surprisingly mixed reviews from the fans. There were some positive comments such as, that Tigger actually looks better in design. The third one most likely will be superior than the first two. As well as an OG fan, this is amazing. But on the complete opposite spectrum, there were actually a decent amount of folks who were not a fan of the new redesign. I could find better looking teeth at the dollar store. Old design was 1,000 times better. This looks so cheap and bad. How are you making the old designs worse? Number 2 was awesome design wise. This screams too much and making it look cheap. So it seems like the reviews of the new design are very split down the middle. And while I did say earlier that I think the new designs do look really good, I completely understand the criticism these fans have to say about. And frankly, I'm kinda siding with them as well. I don't think the new design is bad at all, but what I'm wondering is, what's the point? The new designs for all the characters in part 2, I thought were fine. They weren't anything mind-blowing, but they seemed to perfectly fit the vibes of that movie. So my assumption is that for this installment, they must have had a bigger budget than part 2 and decided, you know what, let's just go all out for this movie and we'll make the villains look more realistic and creepy looking and everyone will love it, right? And again, while I do think they look better than their previous counterparts, at the same time, it just doesn't really make sense. In fact, on that same Instagram post I showed earlier, someone commented saying, but how will they work it into story-wise? They explained the redesigns for the last movie through retconning the ending technically, but Tigger didn't get harmed or anything for the regenerative to make sense for Pooh and Piglet looking different for this movie. So how will it be explained for Tigger or Owl? So if anyone's confused as to what this guy is talking about, what he's saying is that the first Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey was so poorly received that the filmmakers decided to basically retcon that whole movie and instead made it the in-universe movie version based on the actual events that took place in the story. So you know how like the Scream movies have Stab? Basically just like that. So technically the real narrative starts with Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey 2. You could still technically watch the first one to get an idea of what happened previously, but those are now considered to be just actors playing the characters in part 2. Also, just don't waste your time watching that shitty movie, like, at all. But I will admit that was pretty clever of the filmmakers to do that. So it therefore makes a lot more sense why the villains look different than when they did in the first movie. But this movie is supposed to actually be the real deal, unless they decided to pull the same maneuver they did for part 1, which like, that would be extremely cheap and lazy of the filmmakers to do. But I'm positive that they're better than that. So quick spoilers if you haven't seen Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey 2, but Winnie the Pooh and Piglet both die. However, at the very end, they are revealed to be resurrected by Owl, which means that they're gonna come back for another killing spree, and thus why we're getting a third movie. So the crossbreeds have the ability to revitalize themselves even after being killed. So since we know Winnie the Pooh can do that, I guess it's a bit more forgiving as to why his appearance is different yet again. But the same cannot be said for Tigger because, well, he didn't die in Blood and Honey 2. That motherfucker made it out alive. So like, why does he also appear different as well? Again, it probably traces back to the fact that the filmmakers wanted to use every penny in their budget and make Tigger's appearance more stand out. Maybe in the movie they'll say that it's been many years since the last movie and that they've all just gotten really old or something. I just feel like they could have said sometimes less is more and maybe just should have stuck with the previous designs. But then I guess that would have also put poor Vlad out of a job, so. One more thing I want to discuss about this movie is the introduction of a new character. So, the first movie introduced Pooh and Piglet as the antagonists, the second one introduced Owl and Tigger, and this third installment is introducing Rabbit. And as with Pooh and Tigger, this is Rabbit's design for the movie. And normally I'd also probably be saying the same thing about the design almost being too realistic, but at the same time, this is the first time Rabbit is being introduced into this franchise, so he gets a pass. But that's not where Rabbit's story ends for this video, because if you didn't know, all the villains have talking voices as well.
We'll all be back for you, Christopher Robin.
And it turns out Rabbit is going to be voiced by none other than Roger L. Jackson. That's right, the voice of Ghostface from Scream.
Hello, Sydney.
You know, for all the backlash this franchise has been getting over the past few years, it is genuinely cool to see them getting, like, actual actors for their movies. First, Robert Englund and Richard Brake, and now Roger L. Jackson? That's honestly kinda sick. Good job, Twisted Childhood universe. Although, this is kinda funny, but this is actually not the first time Roger L. Jackson worked on a project related to Winnie the Pooh. He did a straight-to-DVD movie for Disney back in the early 2000s called The Book of Pooh. So he's basically a Winnie the Pooh connoisseur at this point, huh? But that's pretty much all we know so far for Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey 3. So overall first impressions, the new makeup looks cool, but at the same time, I don't think it really fits the vibes they were originally going going for. I know it's fun to experiment with fresh new ideas and all, but in some scenarios, it's fine to keep old ideas too. And also, I'm very intrigued to see what Roger L. Jackson is bringing to the table as Rabbit. I'm confident he's gonna steal the show for sure. But what do you guys think? Do you dig the new designs, or do you think they're unnecessary? Do you think this movie as a whole is unnecessary? Be sure to let me know in the comments down below. But anyways, that's all I got for you guys today. See ya.